Alright, everybody, welcome to LCS Weekly. I know it's been a long time since it's been here, I think a couple months, but I'm bringing it back. We have a lot to talk about in terms of what's been going on in League, all the new changes that have been coming with the meta, and so much more. My name is Jared Warnke. I am a League writer here at the Game House. I have been following the LCS since around 2014. Got into it like at the end of Worlds 2013, and my favorite champion is EULCS, and so I am going to let my guest Brandon introduce himself.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Brandon Stark. I'm another League writer for the Game House. I've been following competitive pretty much since I started watching Bunny Fufu stream, and he kind of got me into the competitive side of things. And I am a filthy Vladimir one-trick.
Have you ever been to any League events live?
No, I haven't.
No?
I live all the way out in New York, so it's pretty tough.
Where in New York?
Near Niagara Falls, actually.
Oh, okay. I actually know that area. We can talk about that later.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've actually been to a couple of League events. I went to the LCS Finals in 2016 in Toronto. I went to the World Semifinals when they were at Madison Square Garden in New York. And then recently I went to the LCS Summer Finals in Boston last summer, and that was really fun.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. If you ever have a chance, I would suggest going, because it's a completely different experience than just like watching on like Twitch or YouTube.
Oh, I'm sure.
All right.
One day I will.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we are going to get started here on the news. So today is currently Wednesday, and the patch notes for 8.14 dropped yesterday. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, some of the big surprises that we thought came in, some of the big changes, and what we think could end up happening. So just for a little bit of context, there was a hotfix in 8.13, or it was like a mid-patch update, where there was like some Aatrox changes, some Caitlyn changes, Tristana changes, Varus, Nocturne, Taliyah. They got changed around a little bit. So the main like buffs and changes came around the new reworked Aatrox, but those were through there were some through 8.13. The Fizz change onto his W got reset, sort of. We can explain that later. And then a bunch of other changes. Brandon, what did you think about 8.14?
The main thing that stuck out to me was Aatrox. I really thought, being one of the strongest champions in the meta and an almost 100% pick or ban rate in NALCS, that you would think he would be nerfed, right? Like, just straight nerfed.
Yeah.
But that's not what they did. Instead, they decided to... I mean, they did nerf his early game, which, I mean, they took damage off his Q, they took base health stats off, but they put a lot more damage in. Well, I don't know if it's a lot more, but they put more damage and mobility into his late game, that's where he was struggling. But it's curious to me why they didn't just straight up nerf him, because it didn't really seem like he had that much struggle in the late game, at least for competitive, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I actually haven't had a chance to play him yet, but he looks really interesting with how his Q and his E sort of work mechanically. I think that it's been kind of interesting how they design that. One of the other things that they ended up changing is they added some more total attack damage onto his R, World Ender. It's like another 5% towards the late game. So if you put that in, and then once his E Umbral Dash is maxed out, that's an 8-second down from 12. So I definitely agree that his late game is getting a little bit of health, or a little bit of help. But speaking of his health, it's actually nerfed a little bit early game, so they might just be trying to take him down early, as opposed to just being incredibly lane dominant and then just sort of like having him get out into the late game with some reasonable amount of health. But yeah, we have seen him a lot, especially in EU, like Wonderwear. He's been playing a ton of Aatrox.
Mm-hmm.
And people have just been respect banning it at the current time.
Oh yeah, I would.
And then another thing that I thought was really interesting was the change to Fizz's W. So for those of you who have been playing Fizz recently, when they changed all the assassins way back when, Fizz's W sort of got like a delay to it, where a mark would, after a couple seconds, a mark would come up, and then you could do more damage with this W. They ended up changing that back sort of to what it was before. And so that way, they did keep the cooldown and mana cost partially refunded. And it's just sort of like an empowered auto attack now, where you just you apply the passive bleed over 3 seconds, and Fizz is probably going to be a little more bursty now than he was previously, because I know that Riot, when they brought in Zoe, they reverted a lot of LeBlanc stuff back to what it was. So I think this is them sort of leaning back to champions being able to insta-kill someone and expecting them to, be able to outplay that. Anything on? Right. Have you played a lot of Fizz at all?
No, I personally haven't, but I have a friend who used to main him quite a bit, and I think the W thing, it's a lot. I could see his W. Definitely, it used to work for lane, but then like you get in a late game fight, you can't wait 3 seconds in the middle of the team as Fizz.
Yeah.
So that's what I think they were trying to do, because with an assassin, you don't want your identity to be standing in the fight for 3 minutes. That's not what they're for. So front loading the damage is a lot better for Fizz players. And I think that's what they were mainly going for.
Do you have any favorite changes from the patch notes from 8.14?
Favorite? I think Nasus. I don't think it'll really affect like pro play or anything, but having that extra lifesteal is going to be nice.
Yeah, that'll probably help him. He has a lot to begin with.
Oh yeah.
My favorite buff was to EULCS. He is one of my favorite champions. So his Q went from a 0.6 to a 0.8 ability power ratio, and that's a lot. I think it's really going to help him in lane for a couple different reasons. For those of you who don't know, if EULCS' Q, the Plasma Fission, kills an enemy, you get half of the mana refunded, and so it's possible to kill up to 3 minions, or like anything, with his Q. So what you can do is you can sort of set up the back line to the front line with your W, get 2 stacks, use the Q, get the 3rd stack, kill all 3 minions, and then end up with more mana than where you started. So that way you can have a better laning phase, and then it's a great poke mechanic in lane, and the ability power is really just going to be able to help him out.
Oh yeah, I played against that just a few hours ago as Vladimir, and whoo boy. You can't walk up anywhere near that guy, or in your lane, really.
Yeah. If you pretty much get Q'd, ulted, you're at least losing half your health, if not more.
Oh, yeah, easily.
And then there were some minor nerfs to a lot of the champions that we've seen have been really strong. Dr. Mundo, Rakan, Sejuani, Shen, Swain, Talon. Wukong, the damage, the nerf to Wukong kind of surprised me, because I don't really think I've seen too much of him lately. And then Zoe.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest one's for Swain for sure. He's just been absolutely destroying bot laners, and they took a whole 0.3 ability or explosion damage ratio off of his ultimate, and that's pretty big. You can't one-shot people quite as easily as you used to be able to.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, because when you think of like old Swain, who was just like a sustain mage, and you weren't really supposed to burst people, to new Swain, who you just land your E, you never move, you hit him with a Q, and then you're ulting, and you're trying to get all that damage off as quickly as possible. I think that new Swain is definitely strong. His in-lane sustain is pretty insane with his W and his E, with his passive. And then the other big thing that I would say is the change to the jungler items to try and nerf funneling.
Yeah, I know some people were not happy about this. I think it was Meteos, maybe, that posted on Twitter. I don't remember exactly.
I think it was Dardoch.
Oh, it was Dardoch.
Because I think Dardoch and Freak were going back and forth.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was referencing.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, if you have either the Hunter's Machete or the Hunter's Talisman, and if you have the most individual gold on your team, lane minions will grant 10 less gold. And then this penalty is removed upon completion of an enchantment on the Skirmisher Saber or the Stalker's Blade. So pretty much what that means is if you have the basic jungle item or an unupgraded Skirmishers or Stalkers, you have the most gold on your team, you'll be getting less gold coming in from minions, which definitely hurts when you're funneling. But I think it's definitely good. You don't see many funnel strats in solo queue, but in the LCS, a lot of teams have been bringing them out.
Yeah, I think they did pretty good with this, actually. I mean, it's not going to be a permanent solution for it, I don't think. But just not being able to get to 3,000 gold in 6 minutes or whatever is pretty big.
And then the last thing I want to talk about for the patch notes is teleport. So the base cooldown got another minute added onto it, from 5 minutes to 6 minutes, and the canceled cooldown went from 200 seconds to 240. So as you said, you were a Vladimir player. I'm sure that was both top and mid. How do you think teleport's really going to affect that out?
I think it'll definitely affect solo queue more. I mean, it might push some AD carries off of it, but I don't think so, because it's not going to really change how they're trying to play. But for solo queue, I think you'll see a lot more things like Ignite and Ghost in the top lane, for sure.
Yeah, get back to like that Season 2, Season 3.
Give me the bloodbath.
Always. Alright, so we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the NALCS. And so we each have selected a game that we want to talk about for different reasons, either team preference, just if it was a great game. So, Brandon, I will let you introduce your game first and why you wanted to pick it.
Okay, well, I chose Golden Guardians versus 100 Thieves. I think this is really a good game to see why Golden Guardians are on the upswing and why they're not as horrible as a team as last split when they were... I'm pretty sure they were bottom or just almost 10th place.
Yeah, I think they were either 9th or 10th. And just for... sorry to interrupt, but just for context, I do know this. Golden Guardians ended the spring with a record of 4-14. They're currently at 4-4, so they definitely have a lot of improvement from last split, but I will let you continue.
As long as they don't go on a 10-game losing streak.
Yeah, presumably.
Yeah. But... it was really cool that it was their first 2-0 weekend for the organization. That's always something to hype up. Some of the players, I think definitely is really cool to see, because he was notoriously the one that got coached by Heisendong, and even before we saw Heimerdinger coming out at Rift Rivals, people were banning it from him. And it's cool to see how his ability management in ganks and stuff, because he was throwing grenades and shooting missiles at different people at different times and outplaying ganks. I know he had one gank where they went 1-for-1 and just completely blasted Afromu.
Yeah, I think that was maybe the second kill, because just on the weekend as a whole, Golden Guardians, Mickey just really popped off.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he got first blood like immediately, and then Onda came down bot to kill Matt, and then definitely just turned on Afromu and just slaughtered him.
Oh yeah,
really.
Yeah, the first blood thing was really cool too. I think it was Contracts and Mickey that flashed for it. I don't think Matt ended up flashing for it.
Mm-hmm.
But just seeing them go in together, it shows that the communication's there. And it wasn't just that. There were other plays throughout the game where they were flashing in and making these aggressive plays because they had the trust in each other. And I think that's huge for them while they're on the upswing.
Yeah, I think Mickey has been a great addition to the team. Like Hai was a great mid laner, but I think Mickey is bringing a lot more mechanical prowess to the team. Contracts and Lorlo have been playing really well as of recent, which is good for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been really liking Contracts, actually. He's proving himself on these aggressive junglers. And he's getting known for diving bot really early on.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, he played a lot of aggressive junglers when he was on Cloud9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. but he wasn't the focal point of the team back then, you know?
No.
It was always the Jensen show and Impact, Sneaky.
Yeah, top die.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely thought it was a great weekend for Golden Guardians. And then a decent-ish weekend for 100 Thieves. They did end up beating TSM on the weekend. So they were at least able to pick up a win with their new roster.
Right.
What do you think about the whole Meteos Onda trade?
Well, from what we've seen so far, I really think Meteos was better. But it's hard to say without, like, because we don't have an inside look at the team. So we don't know if they were imploding or what was going on. But just from a outsider's perspective, it looks like Meteos was better. He seemed to have more synergy with the team, and he kind of knew what his laners wanted to do better. Plus, his aggressiveness was a lot cleaner, let's say. He wasn't just dying to ganks or invading. I mean, he did die to some invades, but not quite as bad.
Yeah, not the worst. But yeah, I think it was interesting how they wanted to switch Levi and like Brandini in back and forth. Levi and Brandini played during Rift Rivals, and then Levi had that great Graves game where they were just funneling him. But yeah, I don't know what 100 Thieves are going to be up to in the upcoming weeks, but we will have to see, as they are currently tied for first at 5-3, and they will be playing Echo Fox for like the top seeds this upcoming week. So the game that I wanted to pick, we'll move on to that one. I picked CLG and Cloud9 from, I think it was day 2, just because of the history of both these orgs and how really insane the game was. I have the match history up. So CLG had the highest, or at the highest point, had a 4.9k gold lead on Cloud9 at 32 minutes, and somehow swung that in 12 minutes to be down by 2.3 gold, and CLG still ended up winning the game. I think that there's a lot to how the teams have been really adapting with the new meta. Cloud9 has been really struggling. They've been switching a lot of players in and out. Jensen, Sneaky, and Smoothie have been subbed in and out for Golden Glue, Keith, and Zazel, respectively. Zazel actually played for CLG with Sneaky and Jensen, and the other 3 members were in Academy this past week. But yeah, one of the other big reasons why I want to talk about this game was just how insane that Shockwave was, who he got at the end.
Oh my god, dude, that was insane.
And he got...
I think what's more insane is the Rakan engages. That was that game, right? Wait, am I looking at the right game?
I think so. I mean, Biofrost was on Rakan, and he
okay,
had a lot of
Biofrost Rakan was so clean.
Yeah, they just
nailed pretty much every engage until they started losing. Then he kind of fell back a little bit, but once he got back on, they pretty much instantly won.
Yeah, because I don't remember exactly, but I feel like what C9 would have just wanted to do is just insta-burst Rakan with Jensen's Syndra, and then all of a sudden, you know, they lose their engage. But just the score lines for CLG have been, or were great this game. Stixay went 10-1, Huhi 5-2-13, Biofrost 2-6-18, Rainover 3-4-15. It was actually a big surprise to me so far. CLG are also tied for first, and given how they barely scraped in 7th in spring, that they've been able to come back really well. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think Rainover's a big reason for that, actually. His early games have been very good. I mean, this game specifically, he was cheese ganking bot at level 2, well, C9's level 1.
Yeah.
And then he was getting an Ocean Drake at 5 minutes. He was ganking other lanes. He had a lot of pressure, and I think he's done that a few games now. So he has to keep it up, and I think they'll keep seeing this kind of success.
Yeah, I think it also helps that they can have Rainover and Darshan reliably on tanks for the most part.
Yeah, definitely.
With the Dr. Mundo being so strong. And yeah, Huhi has been really consistent for CLG lately, and now he'll be getting his residency soon. So, not that CLG had an issue before. Well, I mean, they do have 2 imports technically, with Huhi and Reignover, but they might be able to bring in someone new. I don't know who they would replace at this point.
Right, I don't think they really need to replace anybody.
At least not as of right now.
Right.
And then on the flip side, C9, they've had a lot of issues, and the 2 players that they have been consistently starting, Licorice and Sven Skaren, I don't think Sven has really been playing to what he really was in the spring. I think Licorice is playing over to what a lot of people were expecting him to be playing, and Sven has just sort of dropped down a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Sven, especially like in the CLG C9 game, he was just a non-factor throughout pretty much all of the game. I mean, he didn't actually interact with an enemy until after 20 minutes. He was 0-0-0.
Yeah.
And that says a lot. If you can't have any pressure at all anywhere on the map for the first 20 minutes of the game, you gotta really fix something.
Especially on Gragas, too.
Right,
because...
and he went the Runic Echo build, which, with that, you want to be getting out there. You want to be flash body slamming people. You want to be ganking your lanes and smashing kids, but you can't do it if you're not doing anything.
Yeah. Alright, and so we're going to move on to the EULCS, where it is a little bit more rigid in terms of standings. Misfits we have at the top of the table. They're currently undefeated in Europe. G2 actually took an 0-2 week out of Rift Rival, so they went from 6-0 to 6-2. But we will be talking about one of those games soon. Vitality and Fnatic tied at 5-3, and then you have 2 teams at 4-4, 2 teams at 3-5, 1 team at 2-6, and then H2K currently no wins on their belt just yet. So, Brandon, what game did you pick for EU and why?
I picked the Battle of the Kings, of course. Misfits versus G2. This was definitely the most tight matchup coming out of Rift Rivals for the entire week, and it was easy to see why. Both teams were sitting 6-0, and one team had to lose, and one team would assert their dominance. Misfits ended up coming out on top, and it was in a kind of different way than what people thought it would be. They weren't going for crazy aggressive early game picks. They were kind of more of a scaling team, while G2's lineup was more of the solo queue experience with Zoe and Ziggs and Kindred.
Yeah.
But let's see. It was cool. I like what Misfits have been doing with their teleports, which is going to hurt them with the new patch, but
yeah,
that'll be a later problem. But especially Mickey X. He has been definitely performing super well and pretty much hard carrying his games in general, just because he's on these aggressive supports that make plays, and he looks so good on them. He's able to get fights for his team, and they pretty much win them every time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Misfits have been doing really well. I will say, one of the things that have surprised me about Misfits so far is that they have been running standard comps. They're 8-0, and they have yet to run either a mage bot lane or a funnel comp.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
To the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I believe you're right. You should be right on that.
Yeah,
I think that all owes to Hansama. I mean, he's a great AD carry player. I mean, Misfits struggled last split, that's for sure. But Hansama seems to be able to hold his own in this crazy meta, and I think that also goes back to Mickey X and Maxlor. Well, really the whole team in general, because they really like to play through bot, and it seems to work really well for them.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Misfits really thrives in chaos, because even when they had like Ignar, they would just keep fighting and just coming out on top.
Right. It's like the old Unicorns of Love lineup.
Yeah. And then another thing that I really like about Misfits is that they actually sort of have the same kind of trajectory, obviously better than like CLG and NA, where they got squeaked out of playoffs due to records against H2K and Roccat. So they got thrown into 7th. And then now they're back. They're doing amazing. They're 8-0. Maxlor's been playing a lot of like Talia and Camille. You have like Senkux and Alfari sort of taking a step back sometimes and just being that front line that they need. And it's just been... I've been really impressed with Misfits. I do hope that they're able to continue their match streak win.
Yeah, definitely. I think Alfari's been looking really good. I mean, of course, there's only so much flashy things you can do on a tank, but he's always been really consistent. And I think you don't have to play through him. You can afford to sack his lane because he's not going to lose lane that hard, which is really important to enabling Senkux and Hansama to do the damage.
Yeah, and then another thing that's been really interesting is that because Maxlor has been playing a lot of like Talia, and then even if you put Hansama on something like the Kaisa, which builds AP, Mickey X has been able to play these really interesting picks like the Pike, which has been a lot of fun to see.
Oh yeah, I love Pike. It's definitely right in his wheelhouse. Having invisibility, just walking in the mid lane and grabbing a hook on somebody. That's brutal to see.
Yeah. The first professional game I saw on Pike, I was actually really surprised because all the games that I'd seen him played up to that point, it was people taking stuff like Electrocute, and then you would build like full damage. Whereas sometimes in the pros, they're taking... Well, I think all the pros take Aftershock on Pike, and then they've been taking... they've been building Tanky and a lot of other stuff to really just sort of enable the team. Because of his ultimate, the Death from Below, it does have that health cutoff, so you don't necessarily need the damage to kill them with your ultimate.
Right, and I think having that squishy Pike, it works. Obviously, it seems like that's how the champion was intended to be played, but it's kind of like Fiddlesticks, where if you don't have the Aftershock, you're going to get blown up immediately as soon as you start anything.
Especially with how easy it is to land crowd control as Pike.
Right.
Alright, so we're going to move on to the game that I picked, and I picked the other game that Misfits had played. They played against Vitality, and I think it was a really good game for them. Again, just another great win. They were able to win in around 36 minutes. They actually were down a little bit of gold early on, and they'd given up 2 Infernal Drakes to Vitality, and then they really just sort of turned it on, and they were able to take like really nice scrappy fights because of Alfari's Poppy has been able to hammer them away. You know, you start a 5v5 fight, all of a sudden it's a 3v5 fight, and you know, Cabochard and Attila have no way to get back into the fight. So you're stuck, and then Misfits can just step in, attack the other remaining members, take the advantageous fight, and then they took stuff like Baron, and they were able to win with 2 Barons, and I just think that Misfits are playing extremely consistently and extremely well in the EULCS.
Yeah, I think it was impressive how they played, even though Hansama was getting one shot half of the fights. I mean, they had a lot of... Well, they didn't really have a lot of damage besides Hansama, and most of it was magic damage. But they still managed to find these teamfight wins just by being better as a team. And especially due to Alfari. I mean, how many times did he knock Attila out of a fight before he could even get his Demon Flare off?
Oh, so many times.
That was huge.
Yeah. And then another thing that I really kind of liked about the Poppy pick is just how well it kind of countered the Vitality lineup of Ornn, Nocturne, and Shen, and even Swain, where they all just kind of want to be in. And even if you can delay that fight by like 3, 4, 5 seconds with all the crowd control, it will still be really good for Hansama in protecting him, or protecting Senkux and Maxlor, or like getting Mickey X into the fight. I definitely think Poppy, if like Nocturne and Shen are continuing to be in the meta, Poppy might rise up a little more. I think she's been played in a couple other games across the major regions. I don't think she's had that much success specifically.
Yeah, but I think she might be more of a situational pick. I mean, I don't think you're going to see Poppy getting picked in the first phase anytime soon.
No, I think it's like a later pick thing where it's like, oh, well, if we're going into a tank lane anyway, into Ornn, we might as well pick something that can help us out in team fights later on.
Yeah, despite his Poppy looking excellent this game, I don't think their draft was really all that good. Picking Galio into Nocturne, it's really hard to pull off because you saw him, he didn't really ult until the fight was near the end.
Yeah, that paranoid does knock out the hero's entrance.
Right. And I think if they drafted something a little more engage focused, either in the jungle or in the top lane, I think it would have worked out better for him because they could have made more proactive plays, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the Poppy looked great, so how much can you really criticize?
Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shift away from the EULCS, and then the segment that we are doing now, it's more of an open topic where we'll all decide on what to talk about. If anybody listening wants to join in, just throw out comments, or if any of the other writers want to join in, let me know and we can work it out. But this week, Brandon and I have agreed to talk about the current state of the game and how the meta's sort of been shaking out. I know you said you weren't exactly happy with what's going on, so I will let you take that away.
Yeah, I think right now a lot of people really aren't pleased with the meta. I mean, I know specifically me, I'm a Vladimir and Swain player, but I don't play them bot lane because I just don't find the role that much fun. So players like me, we're playing our mages and solo lanes and everything's fine, but then we have pro players playing them in the bot lane and they're pretty broken. So we're getting hit with nerfs for things that we're not really abusing, which, I mean, I get that people are always going to get caught in the crossfire and you can't make the perfect nerfs, but the whole cause of it is making the entire marksman, well, almost the entire marksman role just completely irrelevant. So in my eyes, it's not really these champions being overpowered, it's the whole marksman class being underpowered.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that in terms of marksman being underplayed. I will disagree in the sense that I've actually been really enjoying a lot of the mages being played bot in terms of, one, forcing a lot of pro players to adapt, because I feel like you shift between different marksman metas of, like, Tristana's really good and Twitch is really good, or Corki's really good and Ezreal's really good. And I think that a lot of the mages that are being played in the bottom lane are really forcing teams to rethink almost how to play the game, where now you have a mage in the bot lane, you can open up 80 damage in the top lane, in the mid lane, in the jungle. You don't always have to have a wave clearing mage in the mid lane, or a jungler that can just sort of farm up and doesn't necessarily always need to be as proactive because your marksman is going to scale up anyway. I am the type of player, I know you said you're a Vladimir one trick. I find it very difficult to stick to one champion for very long. I do have my favorites and my comfort picks, but I do like changing up what I play, and I think that because of all the changes to marksman and how more mages are being played bot lane, it's a lane that's kind of opened up for me a lot more. Like, I like playing Sivir, I like playing Jhin, I do like playing Tristana and Twitch, but I've also been really enjoying Ziggs bot lane in the sense that I can counter very aggressive marksman lanes like a Draven with wave clear, with poke, and I can still scale and do a lot of contribute a lot to the team.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. The main thing for me is that everybody says the bottom lane carry champion pool is expanding, when it kind of, if you watch a lot of higher elo players, it seems like it shrinks. You see a lot of Swain, Heimerdinger. I mean, I am Cutie Pie was even playing Wukong, but you don't see many marksmen. I think you see some Draven, some of the aggressive stuff like that, but you really don't have that much diversity if you look at it as it is right now, not what it has been. At least in my opinion. I mean, there might be some stats to prove me wrong, but
I'm not sure either, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like how sort of the entire scope of the map can open up a little bit. I know a lot of pro teams have been taking teleport, which is why it's being nerfed. I think that was a good thing in the sense that teams were able to play around the map more as opposed to focusing on laning. I think a lot of teams just want to get out of laning phase now, where it's like, oh, if we can, rotate around, take 2 or 3 towers, set up vision, get a gold lead, and just snowball from there, as opposed to trying to sit in lane for 15, 20 minutes, maybe get a dragon, maybe see your jungler once or twice.
Yeah, I think the teleport nerf is definitely warranted. I think it'll have a pretty fun impact, honestly, for our games at least. Just not having to be flamed every time you take Ignite top lane. And it'll kind of not make everything so bot-centric, which might actually help with the meta,
Yeah. You can finally carry from, top or mid lane.
Right. I know that's something a lot of players have complained about.
Yeah.
Whether it's warranted or not, that's a completely different discussion, but...
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of pros and cons to the idea that, one player can't win you the game, but one player can lose you the game.
Right.
And I think a lot of pros have been frustrated with that sentiment, especially with this meta. Because if you are playing stuff like Heimerdinger or Swain, there are certain aspects to a team fight in which you kind of want to have in order to have a good team fight. So, for example, like Heimerdinger, you want to have your turrets down first before you start using your other abilities, so that way your turrets can get those beams going and you can do a lot more damage. So you don't want to be chasing people around. You kind of want to fight in either a corridor or just sort of in a general area. And then I know for Swain, sort of the same thing, where you want to get that never move on as many people as you can. You want to have your soul stacks all the way up, so that way you can maximize your demon flare damage, and you can get your Q, I think it's called Death's Hand, proccing on a lot of people over that small cone that it has. So I know that a lot of teams have been really trying to play towards their champions' strengths, as opposed to sometimes their players' strengths, where it's somebody like Doublelift, who is an amazing marksman player. He's handily one of the best in North America, if not the best in North America, and then probably one of the all-time best in the West, in NA and EU. But they haven't won on anything where he hasn't been playing a marksman. They played 2 games of Vladimir, one, I want to say week 2, and then one this past week, and they lost both of those.
I'm pretty sure, was it week 2 or week 1?
It was either week 1 or week 2. I know it was very early on, and I know that they lost.
I'll tell you what, I was definitely watching Doublelift to see what he would do. The first game that he played Vladimir, oh my god, that level 1, he straight entered. Starting E and trying to go in the way. I don't know what he was trying to do, but that's what I think a lot of the problem is for pro players, at least. I mean, even just regular players that main AD carry, they don't care about these champions. They don't want to play these champions, but they're kind of being forced on it.
Yeah.
And you can see they're not really comfortable. The amount of times I've seen Vladimir in LCS played by AD carry mains just flash into their team and whiff their entire combo, it makes me cry inside.
Yeah.
And I've seen it way too many times.
I think that's why a lot of teams have been opting to roll or lane swap almost, where if you are going to run mage bot lane with a funnel mid jungle duo, you have your marksman player play in mid with your jungler, and then you have your mage mid laner go bot. I think 100 Thieves had a good amount of success with that when Ryu was on Vladimir, because he's a great Vladimir.
That game was pretty good from him.
And then obviously Cody's son is a marksman player. He's been playing really well. Despite he got a lot of critique in the spring, just from coming from the end of Worlds and how his flash Tristana play killed his teammates.
Yeah, that happens. You got to make those plays sometimes.
But yeah,
I think he's definitely been stepping up this split.
Yeah, but I think it'll definitely be interesting to see where the meta goes on to Worlds, and then what Riot is planning to do for Season 9, if they're going to sort of stick with the pace of, like, big patch, little patch, big patch, little patch, or if they're going to go back to, like, alright, it's MSI, it's post-MSI, LCS is starting in a month and a half, here are all these changes, and then post-Worlds, here are all these changes going into the next season.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be quite as there won't be as much change in these small increments as what we have right now. There's a lot of people, I mean, Double Lift has a ton of support on this, that the support is so hard, or not the support, the changes that we get all the time are just so hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a player that plays just once or twice a week, maybe, then you really can't understand what's going on all the time. I mean, sometimes it doesn't matter, but sometimes it really does.
Yeah. Whereas, like, you know, if you had somebody who was playing in March and they jumped into the game today, how confused do you think they would be? Where it's like, all right, well, we have reworked Swain. He's now played in the bot lane.
Right. You don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, even with a change like Scuttle Crab, my brother played the next day. He didn't hear anything about it, and he was like, wait, why didn't I get level 3?
Oh, yeah, when the jungle experience got changed.
Mm-hmm. It's just a lot of those changes. You gotta adapt, and adaptation is fine. I mean, you gotta keep the game fresh, or else it's just gonna get stale. But I think there needs to be a limit to it, and I don't think Riot will keep doing it. I think this was more of a test year to see how it went. But maybe they'll refine their the way they do it by the end of the year. We'll see.
Yeah, I think as long as you know, the fans, the pros keep giving feedback, I think that it'll end up okay at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like if the game's unplayable.
Yeah,
but definitely casual players get hurt by it, I would say. And like Double List said, a lot of pro players are kind of getting stuck down in the mud because of it.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to do it for tonight. I want to thank you, Brandon, for joining us. If you wanted to let the people know where they could find you online.
You can find me at the Game House, or I have a Twitter at Gandhi1111. Weird nickname, I know, but you know.
I'm sure there's a story for that. We'll get into it in another time. My name is Jared Warnke. You can find me at the Game House, League Writer. I'm also on Twitter at WarnkeJared. Try and tweet whenever I can. So thank you very much for joining us back to LCS Weekly. I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know. Tweet at us, tweet at the Game House Esports. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. Things we could always change and improve on. But yeah, I want to thank Brandon again for being back on LCS
Thanks for
Weekly.
having me.
And we will see you all next time.